And the next the next 30, 40 minutes, what I'm just going to run through is how can you build a successful career in ICU based on some of the moments of my career, maybe some tips that I would like to share with you. As Phil said, I'm currently the critical care matron at the Cromwell Hospital, which is a private hospital in London. And what I want to do, as I said, is share as much as I can. I've been critical care nurse now for 15 years, and ICU has been all my life, I would say. When I look back 15 years ago, I was 22 at that time. I started straight from university, and 9 months down the line, I had something that really changed even further the way I see ICU. So I had to admit my own mum in my own ITU. And she stayed there for 26 days. She had multiple procedures being done in there. And she was saved by what I think the hands of those very expert nurses that even after 6 months of rehab, she came back to reality. And I have to thank them. But also then from that moment, that was my commitment. How can I make a difference in also someone else's life? Another son, another husband, another wife. So that was really something that made me continue and then develop what I think so far has been quite a successful career. So the plan for today is to just briefly look into my career, not because I think is the example, but I think what will be interesting is to understand some of the decision making, some of the challenges, some of the reasonings, and then maybe share with you and give you some insight on if you come across and you are in the same situation, what else can you do? Then after that, I want to talk about some of the challenges. So the challenges that I experienced that maybe other ITU nurses experience. And this presentation is targeted for people that might want to join ITU or other people that are already in ITU and they want to develop further in their career. So I'll be touching on that. Then importantly is for people to know, which something maybe when I started ITU, I did not know what were the milestones and what were some of the achievements that I have to move from one step to another. So I'll cover those briefly. So you also have that idea of probably where you are at the moment or where you want to be. And then Phil asked me to touch as myself being an NHS nurse and has been in the past, and now I'm at the private sector, trying to discuss both of those opportunities, what it is to be nurse in the NHS, what it is to be nurse at the private sector, but always within ITU. And then maybe to help you out when we think about hiring, I have quite clear standards in my mind. I've been recruiting for a long time now. So I'll also share with you what are some of the tips that I would like you to have. So when we come up another interview, you can actually bring those experiences and maybe that knowledge that you gained today. So if you look into my career today in the UK, so when I was in Portugal, I had 3 years of experience in a cardiac ICU, and then I decided to move to the UK. And then you can see there in the screen that you can recognize 2 NHS hospitals, 2 private hospitals, and also a university job that I got in the West London University. First question, was this planned, what you have on the screen? No, I don't think that what you have in front, it was planned. Loads of people do plan their careers and they have very specific targets, which is good, but it's also good not to have like very detailed goals. I think sometimes as you go along, you might understand what you like, what you don't like. And in a brief summary, I can tell you that I've done clinical work, I've done educational work, and now I'm in a more managerial position. So I think the things as they came, they were not planned. But one thing was common throughout all of these places is there was loads of hard work, there was loads of commitment, and there was loads of investment. I think important to say is also the influences in your career. So it's not just about you, it's about the people that you have around you, is your mentors, is your senior nurses, but also other members of the multidisciplinary team. I've learned loads with doctors, I've learned loads with AHPs, and I think everybody in your workplace and your future workplaces will have something to add to you. So really use those as your way to progress. My first tip to you is you need to find in each single place a right person to help you. I've had great people that I selected to be my mentors, and that made a lot of a difference in my confidence, in my understanding of what the future was going to bring. Then I think also is the relationship that you have with your managers. Sometimes you might feel that some managers are more experienced, less experienced. Others, for example, they might be very available. Others not so much available. But I think one of the things that I take from my career to date is very good relationship with my managers, in a way that we created the relationship. And then our one-to-ones were always a way that I could get something out of it. So it's no good to have a one-to-one where whoever is managing you or leading you just focus on, oh, okay, well, we'll send you to that training, or you completed your, oh, please complete your mandatory training. There has to be something more, which I will talk a bit more later on. But yeah, those are some of the key things that I'd like to look into. When I started in the UK, I started at Brompton. And as you can see here, I held 4 positions in those 5 years that I was in there. It was a great place to work. And I think for people to understand, when you start off in critical care, my points for development will be, you really need to know your basics. Okay, so understanding from the beginning the basic nursing care in ITU, the assessment, the A2E, the head to toe, call it whatever, those are fundamental for you to get your baselines. Then, as you know, ITU always tend to bring a ventilator attached, so having good knowledge, good basic knowledge of ventilation is paramount for when you want to progress further. Having a good understanding on your drugs, and also the common therapies that we tend to run, i.e. I'm thinking about here, filtration, for example, is one of the most common ones. So when I was at the Brompton, I focus on, as I said, developing, increasing my knowledge on all of the things that I've just said to you. I've done the intro course, which was an in-house. I moved into the ICU course. And then interestingly, my appetite to do something different started around that time. So as I finished the course, I thought, oh, okay, well, I really liked my teachers. I really appreciated the way they were here to share their knowledge, to show their experience. And that always got in the back of my mind. So I part that in there, and I continue to develop clinically. I've done my mentorship, and I started to mentor students and also some of the new starters, because the Brompton was an ECMO center. What I decided to do in there was to develop as a specialist ECMO nurse, and I thought that was really interesting for me, because it will give me the full kind of knowledge about how to deal with those patients. Then I developed into after finishing the course, into senior staff nurse, where I started supporting people more frequently. And I realized that I was good at something. I could get people around me to teach them, to explain them. And then I suggested to the guys in there, well, at the moment, it doesn't seem like there is a lot of people supporting clinically the people in need. So can I have some time to do some clinical facilitation? And that's how, within the Brompton, that position was created. So it was really interesting to see how from something that didn't exist, just because of my will, just because of my idea of let me try to search for something that, since the course, has been on the back of my mind. So I've done clinical facilitation in there, and then later on there was a project that was coming around follow-up clinics for ITU nurses, and I thought, this is great. I mean, we'll see the patient in ITU, and then we'll see the patient further down the line. So I got my hand on it, and then for 6 to 9 months, I did that job. So what I'm trying to say is looking at opportunities to grow, looking at things that you hear, that you see, and say, well, let me try, let me give it a go. And then with the support from your mentors and your team, you will be able to take on some of these experiences. When the time came, I wanted to develop education. Was something that I really wanted to do, and this was the first decision that I've made. Okay, what do I want to do now with my career? Do I want to continue and follow management in charge, or do I want to give it a go with education? So at the time, it was very clear to me that I wanted education. So that's when I decided to then move into St. Thomas, where for the first time I got my band 7 position, and in there the responsibilities were huge. So it was a massive hospital, 500 staff, loads of ITUs, HTUs, and once again I was starting from the beginning. But from that beginning, I said, okay, well, what am I going to gain here? What am I going to develop? And within 6 months, I was given the opportunity to manage the intro course, which was a very interesting course that we run in partnership with King's. Once again, I had to put loads of my knowledge that I gained from the past, and then be able to start influencing the new generations of nurses. And what is good is that some of the people that I met at the time, some of them I got to know where they are at the moment, what they've done. They still remember those classes. And it's so good to see that I had an impact in someone else's life. So again, I started to have some time to give back some of the knowledge that I gained from other mentors and leaders. That was my time now to be able to do that. So again, where did I learn? I learned because I was exposed to multiple experiences, from running this course, from doing simulation in the area, for being responsible for inductions. So I just absorbed all of that. And I think at some point, after close to 2 years, I had a friend of mine that said, Joe, there's another opportunity here in the private sector. Do you want to come and work as an educator for me? And I thought, oh, okay, well, I'm loving this job. What else is now going to come? So it was a single role. There was no team as I had it in St. Thomas. And that's when I decided to move to the London clinic. So first private hospital that I was going to have an experience at. I was not sure about what the job was, how the environment was going to be. But what I did see is that working together with my mentor, which was at the same time my manager, it was such a good opportunity for me to be able to see more about an area that I left behind, which was management. So in there, I've helped him opening a brand new unit. We prepare for CQC, we recruit loads of people, and I was involved with quality improvement. So all of those opportunities that I had, I grabbed them, and they were not planned. That they came up, and then I had the chance to decide what am I going to do. But once again, going back to this, you have loads of things around it that do influence your career. So think about them. Try to see what will be probably your best shot at, and just give it a go. London and the UK, I feel of those opportunities. So really encourage people to always have a look at how things are. And then it came to a point that sometimes career needs to change, not because of new opportunities, not because of that there's no one else, or there's no post for you to improve. Sometimes you just don't um, connect with something anymore, and then you say, well, now it's probably time to move on to a different place, see different things. And that's when I had the opportunity at the Cromwell Hospital to be an ICU lead nurse. So basically I'll be managing this new ICU. And then in here was really interesting to see that I was on my own, and I had to put all this knowledge that I had in place. So I had to again open a unit, double up the size of my team, do loads of recruitment, quality improvement. But now with the responsibility that I was the role model, I was the person that had to be there to support the others. And it was it has been for me a great experience. Recently moved into critical care modern matron, which I pretty much do the same the same job. It's just an adjustment. I'm also responsible for an outreach team and for a clinical informatics team. So again, if there's opportunities, why not? Let me try. And with hard work, I've been able to get to where I am at the moment. So I think it's important to share with you some of the challenges that I've had. I think from the critical care perspective, is there are people on the call that are, for example, in a ward setting, to trying to understand, okay, so what are the issues with critical care? So I think complexity of the speciality is one. So when we think about critical care, we know that critical care is a busy place, is a place where things happen very quickly. The nurses need to be really focused, and also it requires loads of knowledge from the individual. So I think that how did I overcome this complexity, was to start off by studying a lot, understanding that this is not a place that I can just go with the flow. I really need to put my hands into the books and research and get my competencies signed and done. But at the same time, uh, on a day-to-day basis, planning the day, I thought that was very good for me to be able to free up some time to have some catch ups with my mentors, to help other people, to learn from other people. So planning ahead. And then if you're going to start in ITU, I think a humble and honest attitude are key. Calling for help whenever you need, because that will reduce your anxiety and the complexity, because you know that someone else will come and support you. In terms of the diversity of the environments, again, for you on the call that have been in various ITUs, uh, ICU is a specialism, but within that specialism, there's other specialisms. So I've worked in cardiac units, I've heard about liver units, neuro units, burns units. So that adds complexity to the environment. Then when you think about, there are some areas which are high dependency areas. There are other areas which are ICU areas. The staffing requirements is different. In one, you might be on a one-to-one, another one, you might be on a one-to-two. Even the location or the structure of the building. So we now have buildings which are open floors, others are a mix between open floors and also side rooms. And for example, at the Cromwell, we have only individual rooms. So all of those differences, for a new nurse or for an existing nurse, they do put pressure. They do become a challenge on a day-to-day basis. So how I suggest people to be successful within their environments, they really, really need to grasp how the environment works, speak to people, trying to understand the dynamics of the place, because those, once again, they will facilitate your workload. I think the emotional management is quite an accepted one post-COVID. Everybody knows that ITU nurses are an extreme pressure, because they deal with a vulnerable person in the situation that they need the most. And you know that all the drugs that you're giving, all the interventions that you're doing can be critical in the outcome of the individual. So what do I normally do to trying to avoid myself from burnout is to trying to have some quiet time, some time with the family, exercise, eating well, trying to sleep well. Not the great, but again, I think that emotional awareness is very important. And I think if you're not doing well, I think you need to search support within your colleagues and within your management. The other two things that might be different than just this ICU perspective, and it comes from me as things that I felt in my career, was sometimes you have this inability to progress. You like the place that you work, you love your colleagues, but you want more. And I think that links to the second point, which is the fear to change. So I've changed 3 times job in the UK. I came from Portugal, and I remember my first work in Portugal. I really felt that I was going to be there for 40 years. I had a great life, great unit, and then things changed. And as I said before, it could be a life change, it could be a personal thing, it could be an environmental thing, it could be an opportunity. So do not fear change. Of course, analyze the situation correctly, but it is the same job. If you move within critical care, it is the same basic care. The things that will change around will be related to the environment, will be related to the specialism. But again, those things are easy to adapt to. You just need to be confident on yourself. So always have that in mind. So looking into the milestones and achievements, when I had of course, some of my initial qualification in ITU, those things were not out. I think what is very important to acknowledge is the UK is really strong on developing policy and standards, and critical care has a good evidence of that. So within the UK critical care, we have CC3N, which is a group of senior nurses that decided to create the step 1, step 2, step 3, and step 4 competencies, which basically help the nurse understanding where they are and what do they need to do. So when you look at the milestones for your step 1 competencies, so this is a book with loads of competencies inside that need to be signed off by a competent mentor, but they should be done during the time that you run your your introduction to critical care course. You should or could at the same time do now the bridging module for the mentorship. Your ILS would be advisable. So then what other achievements I think are important for you as you start to get inducted into the critical care? Start to looking into sharing some of that knowledge with some of your peers, either new starters or nursing students, and then start to get involved with some small quality improvement plans, either helping someone with an audit or changing something minor within the bed space, or something that will start allowing you to lead on something that further down your career, it will work as an experience. Then the step 2, step 3. So when I was Educator, this was still something that it varies from hospital to hospital. Some hospitals do step 2 before you going to be sent to the ITU course. Some will do during the ITU course, and then others will then move on to the step 3. So step 2, step 3 competencies, as you can understand, that is a progression of advanced knowledge as you reach the step 3. And of course, the step 3 will be the more advanced competence that you need to look into. Again, if you haven't done the mentorship by then, is something that is another milestone. And then ILS, ALS, depending on the units, again, sometimes they might want to train some individuals a bit higher up in terms of their ability to provide care during resuscitation or deteriorating patient. So they could be milestones to consider. And again, more now and a bit more improvement. That's why it changed a bit. I changed the slide. So quality improvement projects will come up as something that I really advise people to get involved with, because this again is the experience that you can then take to, if you decide to go into a management position or to a more educational senior position, you are going to be involved with improving practice. So continuing doing, of course, supporting to the students and to the nursing, new nursing staff is key. Once you complete all of this, you then have a specialism in ITU in this country. And that's really rewarding. Everybody feels really proud of, and normally tends to link and to give you access, if you want, of course, to a band 6 position or a senior staff nurse position. Once you get to that level, I think this is where various units, various pathways can be followed. Again, as key milestones, I think line management will be one. So you're starting looking at managing someone, and this could be something between your band 6 or band 7, so senior staff nurse, charge nurse level, because those will be fundamental for you to start understanding the interactions that you need to have with individuals, how we are going to lead them to change, how are you going to support them. And this is where it's handy to have a leadership course. So loads of NHSs have leadership programs, either in-house or outside. Loads of private hospitals also have their own qualifications, and sometimes a link with CMI, which is an identified institution for management, and that is certificated. So I think once you get there, quality improvement, it has to be part of your day-to-day. line management as an opportunity. ALS, definitely something that you should be looking at getting from your hospital. And then again, depending on your experience on your band 6 or band 7, get yourself into a leadership course, because this is what you're starting to do more and more, is difficult conversations, supporting people, looking at development, maybe looking at finances. So really, really good tools to help. And continue, of course, mentoring junior staff. Maybe now you're band 6s if you're a band 7. So always keeping an eye on the next generation and inspire the next generation. When it comes to opportunities here at this level, I think it varies a lot. So at this time, I was around education, so I was following my educational pathway, and then it got diverted into management. The clinical pathways are extremely important. So here in the UK, there's more and more opportunities for development within the clinical pathways. So some people end up diverting to provide outreach care. So nurses that will be going out to the wards. There's some senior specialist nurses that they might be looking at a specific disease. For example, they might be end up cardiac consultants, nursing cardiac consultants. They might be in a liver specialism, so they develop to that level. And then you also have the advanced practitioners in ITU, which now they come up quite commonly, and the NHS is doing a big push for that. I think is a great way to work and to develop. Through the managerial side, so of course you have your nurse in charge, team leader, then you go for the management, managing the units or managing a division. So those could be some of the pathways. In terms of education, again, it could be like a PDN, or you can be a clinical educator, or you can be then the lead of the clinical educators, and you might have some junior positions as clinical facilitators, as I experienced. So that's the pathway of critical care in the UK in a nutshell. Then in terms of looking at opportunities, so Phil asked me to talk about these two universes that work in together. So the NHS and the private. If you're an NHS nurse, you think that private is too different. If you are a private nurse, you might think, oh, the NHS is too different. So actually being in both, caring for a patient and ITU is exactly the same. The standards are the same. The expectation is the same. The NHS, in terms of progression opportunities, it might be seen as having a higher number of opportunities, not sometimes in critical care, but I had loads of friends and colleagues and people that I mentor that at some point in their career, they said, Joe, I want to step out of ITU. With my knowledge of ITU, I want to be a CNS in cardiac. I want to be a CNS in tissue viability. I want to be, so that level of knowledge that you get to be a full-fledged ICU nurse, then it gets recognized outside, and you tend to have this kind of a higher level of responsibility, and people can then use some of those skills into other areas. Of course, in terms of NHS, not only bigger institutions, more positions, more posts. So hopefully people will progress as I said, there's other people that will leave or that will move to other jobs. In terms of the work, not all the hospitals, but in central London, various hospitals have an A&E. Units can be predominantly a mix between surgical and medical, and you have, of course, people from the streets of London or the UK that will come and they will use the service as a free service. In the private sector, it tends to be more controlled, closed, predominantly surgical. Everything is very well planned, and then some hospitals they might have some sort of access to emergency, but they don't tend to be the majority. Within here, in terms of population that comes to the private sector, it's either your self-pay patient, someone that does not have an insurance and he wants to have some sort of procedure that they will come and they'll pay. Of course, you have to have loads of funds for that. It can be your insured patient, either they have a Bupa, Allianz, Vitality insurance, and they will come in for a procedure or for a medical admission. And then you have a big population which is represented by the international market, so the Arab market or the African market, which tend to send quite a lot of patients. So the care is the same. The place might look similar. You also tend to see in terms of environment that the private sector tends to go for more individualized rooms with more privacy, normally smaller units also, to trying to dedicate more and more of that or that culture of privacy, individualized care, which in the NHS, don't get me wrong, we'll try the same, but again, you end up sometimes, depending on the units, losing that individuality. In terms of progression, as I said, while the NHS has all of these other side opportunities, the private will help also the same thing. But one of the things that I notice is it allows faster career progression in some areas. Why? Because not faster, I would say, it allows you to gain more responsibility due to the size. So I see some of my Band 6, for example, when comparing when I was Band 6 in the NHS, where I was a very strong clinically knowledge individual, comparing that then to in the private sector, we might ask them to be in charge, for example, already. So a bit of a difference in terms of the end point of each of the positions. And then last, I wanted to share with you some of the things that I might look when I'm hiring a staff nurse, a senior staff nurse, and also a charge nurse. I think it's very broad. I just put some key comments in here that normally tend to sit in my interview questions, depending if you are a staff nurse coming from, for example, school, or if you're a staff nurse that comes from a ward environment, or a staff nurse from another ITU. One of the key things that I really want to see is, do you know how to assess your patient? Do you have those A to E or head to toe skills? And if the basic ones, because as I said, if you come from school, you've learned this from school. The same way as, can you apply some sort of rationale on what you are doing? And if the patient deteriorates, do you know what's normal or abnormal? What would you do in a basic way? Of course, if I'm hiring for someone that already has an ICU course, those things will be things that will be already expected. But still, I will be concentrating and assessing on. And then some knowledge of main drugs, main therapies that we use. Really, really important, and a big tip for any interviews that you do. People sometimes get to focus on the theories, the reports that are coming around the UK due to various issues that that you might have encountered. But more and more interviews are based on you demonstrating evidence of things that you've done. So every time you have a situation, an incident, or a compliment, always have that in the back of your mind, because those will be the situations where me as a hiring manager will be asking you, can you tell me about a time that you mentor someone, for example? What did you do? What was the outcome? What in terms of quality improvement, even as a Band 5, I might ask you, okay, well, during your time as a Band 5 in another unit, what were you involved with? Were you a link nurse for something? Were you doing an audit? So bring to life some of these examples and evidence that you do. Of course, at this moment in time, staff nurse, if you come as a staff nurse with already some experience, evidence of mentoring is also key, because that's when you start to look at, okay, well, this individual now is sitting higher up on the pay scale, will be they're able to support junior members of the team. So really important to look into the mentoring, because when you come to a senior staff nurse position, that's what you want to see, is that your mentorship and coaching is really, really strong, but at the same time, you now have an advanced clinical knowledge. So that the questions that I'll be asking you will be me or other people in my position. They will be wanting to know, what would you do in some specific situations. Then there might be some situations where we'll be asking you to see leadership skills. So when you find something difficult, when you have to challenge someone in practice, those will be, again, really important. I think as you progress in your career, governance becomes something that you need to be aware of, your audits, your CQC reports, your risks in your environments. And I know that sometimes in some areas, I did not see some of those things, but normally your environments, if you get into a critical care, you will have a critical care governance meeting. There will be groups working to improve practice. So just get nosy, get to know, get yourself involved. Of course, you need to have your relevant courses, your ICU course in here, your mentorship course, and then again, evidence of mentoring and solid evidence on quality improvement. And then last, for charge nurses, again, I talked through this before, so evidence of leading people will be now an essential thing, proving and demonstrating leadership skills. And once again, I'm repeating myself, but quality improvement is key. Leading on the audits, leading on new projects, reviewing policies, changing practice in the unit, really, really key things. And that links to the knowledge of a document that is almost like the Bible for critical care for me, which is the GPICS, which is the provision of critical care services, is a document that was released, I think, last time around 2019, 2020, around how do you deliver critical care services. So at this level, you want to see someone that already understands the functionality of an ITU. What are the things that we need to do? What are the things that we need to have? So then we are delivering the best care to the patient. And then the other thing that I'll be looking at is, are they already deputizing in some tasks or in some functions to the senior teams around those environments? So this is what I wanted to share with you in 40 minutes, my career, some of my challenges, some of the pathway that is laid out at the moment in the UK, and then as a hiring manager, trying to bring you to life with what people might looking at depending on the position that you are going to. As a summary, again, look at your pathway, think about your moves, think about what else can you do within your place to take the most out of it. Think about those relationships that you have with the people at work, and then reach out for your senior people, because they will be able to support you and guide you. You have my email here if you want to have any follow-up questions, even after the Q&A that we're going to have now. Feel free to contact me. I'm more than happy to help people progressing and developing. Thank you.
Brilliant. Let's give a virtual round of applause. Everyone's muted, but we'll all go on our screen to give Joao a lovely round of applause. Thank you so much. We have had questions coming in. So I will ask the questions, and then Joao, if you don't mind answering them. So we've got a question here. How difficult is it for a nurse to transition into ICU nursing without any ICU experience in their past? And do you have any advice for these nurses that would be interested in transitioning into ICU from a different specialty?
Yeah, I'll be very, very honest. So the best way is, I mean, if you're in London, I would say, and even if you're not in London, big ICUs always need staff. No matter where you go, they always are looking for staff. And they tend to be the ones with larger teams, for example, larger educational teams that can provide quite a lot of support. So, for example, if I mention is St. Thomas, we used to get loads of people from the wards. So I think he's making sure that you prepared nicely to the interview. So with some tips, so for example, I've mentioned to you the step 1, step 2, step 3. Go and have a look at those competencies that are in there. What people will be looking at is, are you a safe pair of hands that know the basics of assessment, that know your normal medication, whatever specialism you are, that know how to do some calculations. And if you have that, you will be able to transition. It's not easy in terms of getting into them and work, getting into the actual job. Some of the bigger trusts will be very pleased to, as I said, to take you. Saying this, within the private sector, after having a good supportive team, I've always looked into once a year or twice a year, bringing in some people from a non-ICU environment. It's a bit more rare, but you can still get people that that can, of course, support you with the transition. So yeah, those will be my advice. Maybe look initially at bigger trusts, and then, as I said, if you have, and if there are advertised jobs within the private sector that are happy to take you, means that probably they are prepared to support you in this transition. And I have to say, if I look at the Cromwell, for example, where I am, I just recently had two newly qualified that started with us in 3 months' time. They started their ICU, their intro course, and they are doing really well. So I think it's possible, but my advice would be look at your assessments, look at these CC3N competencies, trying to understand what will be the initial competencies that you'll be asked for, and then go for a job.
Great, thank you for answering that one. We've got another question here. How do the development opportunities in private compare to NHS? I guess that's more of a general question. So how do the development opportunities in private compare to NHS?
Yeah, so I think the reality is at the moment the NHS is suffering a lot from access to funds. So there's loads of work from the people within the departments to trying to source money from different places. So there tends to be quite a lot of a waiting list for people to get into the courses. So the reality is you might wait longer at the moment within the NHS to get development. Within the private, it's not that the funds are all there and everything is nice and shiny. No, well, the reality is there are some funds allocated to it, and I think the access to development in terms of courses, it is faster.
Brilliant, thank you for that. Another question here. What is the role of a clinical educator? Some people are new to the UK and may not be familiar with this term.
Interesting. So yeah, so the clinical educator is a nursing role that has the responsibility to support the development of primarily the junior nurses within critical care. So I told you about these national competencies. So the initial work of a clinical educator is inducting you into your environment, making sure that you know how to operate with all the machinery, maybe going through with you the key concepts of critical care. If you are new to critical care, it might create your initial rosters. You might have one-to-ones with you when you join the unit, and then they will, together with your team leaders, they will provide, for example, training sessions within the units. They might deliver the bigger courses. If there's no in-house, they will be the ones linking you with the university to make sure that you can get access to those courses. And then, for example, they can sit into preparations for some of these ICU courses. They will support you with that. They will run simulation. They will run individual one-to-one sessions. So the scope of the job is huge, but in a nutshell is to support and develop the staff within an intensive care unit.
Brilliant, thank you. Got some more questions coming in. This one, would it be possible to send over the recorded session? We have recorded this. I think the file will be incredibly large, so we'll think about how we can share this afterwards. But yes, it is recorded, and we are hoping that we can share it. If you are let us, Joao, that's with your permission, of course.
My voice.
Yeah. Great. So just want to say thank you. There are people joining us from around the world, so this is incredible. Hello. For an overseas nurse with experience in ICU, do you recommend to start in the NHS or in the private sector?
If you have already experience, I think that it's either. I mean, it doesn't really matter. I currently, for example, also look into international nurses. We have international nurses coming to the Cromwell directly, and in other private hospitals, I know that that's done. So I think it is the same. You get the same level of support. You'll be exposed to the same things. So I don't think that you should choose one versus the other. I think in that sense, any place will welcome you.
Good stuff. Another question here. You mentioned that there may be challenges within ICU, potentially linked with unfortunate patient outcomes that are inevitable in a job within ICU and DCU and no one's fault. How do you deal with that side of the job? And is there support available to help nurses in these moments? It's a good question.
Yes. So that's a very good question. It's not across as I said, the organization, either NHS or privates. There is a movement and some units that I've seen, for example, UCLH in London, they do have a psychologist in place that works for the patients, but also for the nurse or for the team. So I think there's still a big lack of ability to have that functional support. It's not like I provide support to my staff. Don't get me wrong. The mentors will provide, the team leaders, but that specialized support, I don't think is widely available for the clinical teams in critical care. But there is more and more support from the Intensive Care Society. They just released a couple of months ago a well-being after COVID, a well-being document where they suggest what ITUs should have. But of course, the bigger ICUs probably have ability because of the volumes and the money that they have to have those support. The smaller ones, they will eventually struggle to get that. But it's a very good question because loads of people I know that are suffering, and then it gets down to the managers or the colleagues to sometimes support these individuals.
Brilliant. Just a quick question. Any courses you would recommend? So any courses for specific to ICU that you would recommend? Does your hospital hold any courses, or do you have any courses that you recommend?
Is that from a perspective of if you're not an ICU nurse?
If you are an ICU nurse, are there any courses that you recommend? So any kind of in London, like
in London.
Yeah, or clinical in other parts of the country.
Yeah, I mean, London has loads of faculties that deliver. So you have City University, you have South Bank. For example, we work with West London University, which was where I also taught in the past. And then there's some hospitals, for example, the Royal Free, which also has its in-house course. So I think all these courses will require you to have a mentor in your place of work. So normally you need to be employed in critical care, be a critical care nurse, band 5, for example, and you have to have the support of your clinical educator to get into a course. So you won't be from a ward perspective, for example, oh, I want to jump on an ITU course, that won't happen. Or even sometimes people, oh, I have the funds, I will jump and I will do an ICU course. Well, it can get a bit difficult if the management and if the clinical educators in there will say, well, look, we need to give priority to whoever is in there. We'll only support the individuals that are ready to go. So I think there's loads of courses. Just get in touch with your education team, and they will normally work with 1 or 2 providers. So yeah.
Cool. Got a few more questions here. I know we're closing in on 8 o'clock, so we'll just try and get through them. Which hospitals would you recommend that support the ICU progression, as some hospitals take longer to complete the steps? Or can you recommend any? Can you recommend any hospitals?
I think.
Or is it down to the individual as well? I mean, how would you answer this question?
Yeah. As I said, larger NHS trusts, they do have larger educational teams, but at the same time, they also have larger teams. So smaller hospitals, they might have only 1 clinical educator, for example, for a team of 25 or 50, while in the NHS, that tends to be spread out to bigger. The national recommendation is 1 to 75. I don't think I can, as I said, I can tell a hospital. I don't have the knowledge of which hospital is faster or not faster. I kind of, I'll take what you just said, which is extremely important. It's not just about the hospital, it's about how committed are you with, for example, if you have step one at the moment, I don't send anyone to my ICU course without having the step one done. So the quicker you sign off, you get signed off on the step one, the potentially faster you get into the course. Then while you do the course, you need to do those competencies to complete it. So yeah, it's a difficult question. I don't have which hospital is best to do that, but definitely there's an individual, and that's what I said. The mentors are really important. Pick the right person, the person that can actually give you the time. If you think 1 month, 2 months, and you don't have, the person is not giving you the time, is not seem to be interested, just say thank you so much. Well, let me find another person, because it's really important you have someone that spends times with you. And I remember sometimes finishing my shift, and then the guys will say, "Oh, Joe, let's sit down for half an hour. Let's go through what you've done today. Let's sign some competencies." You know, if you don't have that level of support, it gets really hard for you to get the knowledge and get the thing signed.
Good
So
answer.
invest on your relationships, I think.
Yeah, it's a good answer. I'm a nurse in a care home wishing to transition into critical care. What's your advice? Is it something achievable, doable? It's a good question.
I struggle to believe that transition will be possible. It's a very far connection. I think that the way hospitals work and the way a care home works. So I think maybe apply for a job in an area with a bit more critical, or have a critical expertise, for example, emergency departments, AMUs. Those will be areas, or even wards that have some level of critical care. For example, that look after trachea patients or respiratory patients. That might be an easier connection. Some trusts also, don't get me wrong, looking at some trusts, they have what they call rotational jobs. So, which is really interesting. So when you're applying for a job, instead of going, okay, I'm going to that ward, sometimes there's some, and I know St. Thomas does have that, where you apply for a job and you rotate. So you are 3 to 6 months in a cardiac ward, then you rotate and you're going to do, for example, 2 to 6 months in theaters, and then you rotate and you're going to do 3 to 6 months in ITU. And then at the end of that, you can choose where you're going to go. So that gets you closer to ITU, and then you also have the experience in various different wards. So check out for that.
Brilliant, thank you. We have a question here from Van. How did you decide to move forward when there is an opportunity for career growth? And what are those things that help you decide to give it a go?
Yeah, that's a that's a very, because it can get personal from the perspective of, you want to change, and what I tend to do is, am I happy in this place? Yes or no. Majority of the times I've been happy in my place. So that gives me that reassurance that I'm not forced to leave. I'm not in a situation that I feel like I'm desperate. So when I approach the next job, I'll approach it with kind of a cool temper, and analyzing the thing. So if it is a new opportunity, as one of my mentors said, always look at vertical moves, not lateral moves. Of course, you can do a lateral move if it's convenient. For example, like for a family situation, you might be an hour and a half away from your current hospital where you're very happy, but suddenly you might have a child, you might want to be closer to the nurse, you might want to be closer to something, and you decide to do a lateral move, and that's absolutely fine. But if you want to progress to something higher, what I tend to do is, am I able to deliver on the things that I see on the job description? And majority of the times I seem to have some of those that are showing off on those job descriptions, and that gives me the reassurance that, okay, I will be able to, once I come in, to deliver on quite a significant number of things. The rest will come in as I need to know the job, I need to know the people, and there's that trying to fight against your fear to change. So if you have the right courses, if you have significant number of those experiences already with you, and you feel confident about it, this is the time that I feel like I'm going to give it a go. And that's what happened, for example, in St. Thomas. When I moved to St. Thomas, I've been supporting students, I've had my courses, I've been doing loads of teaching sessions. Is it right for me to move and take on a leadership role in education? Of course, it made sense, and it paid off. And then when I moved to management, for example, when I was deputy manager to now being a lead, a matron, it was the same thing. Are you doing one-to-ones with people? Are you doing planning? Are you doing rosters? Are you developing people? So I was doing it already, so it made sense. So you need to feel comfortable with parts of the jobs, of the new opportunities that you're looking to. And then I think another very good suggestion is to try to meet up people from those environments. Try to speak to individuals that are already there. Visit the places, and you get a feel for the job.
Thank you for that. I would say we've got one last question, and then we will, I think we've got two actually, two questions, and then we will wrap up. I currently work in the ICU. My allocated mentor is rarely at work and does mostly nights when she's at work. She is unable to do my book with me. Do you think I can ask for another mentor, or just get someone else that can help me?
Yeah. I think this is where I encourage my staff to have this ability to be honest and open. And what they need to do, or that person that is asking the question, is a very valid question. I know that sometimes people feel like, oh, am I going to create some tension in here to go to my mentor and to say, I think your mentor will know that they're not supporting you. And they will know that probably there's no capacity of, if he's always on nights, means that he has a need for the night. So speak to the individual and say, I've been, I'm behind with my competencies. Will that be a possibility that I'll find someone else? You can still, as I said, support me when I'm with you on the shifts, but would you be able to, or would I be able to find someone else? Because I really want to continue developing, and at the moment it's not working. So absolutely, just have that confidence to go and speak to your mentor, and I'm sure that you'll understand.
Brilliant, brilliant. Just to remind everyone, Joao, I think you should put your email in the chat just in case we've had people join late. So if you do have any questions related to your career or related to ICU, feel free. Joao's going to put his email address in the chat box, and feel free to drop him an email. There was one, wasn't really a question, but someone's asking if we can run more events for overseas nurses. I think there's a lot of nurses that are joining the webinars that are from overseas looking for a new position in the UK. So the more information we can give them, the better. So yeah, Joao's put his email address in there. I think we'll just wrap it up now. So I just want a big round of applause for Joao. Thank you very much.
No, pleasure.
Maybe I can unmute you. I'm not very good with technology, but if I can unmute you, I would. But a big round of applause. Thank you so much for taking time out of your Sunday night, and everyone else for joining on a Sunday night. We're going to be running a lot more of these events. If you didn't hear me at the beginning, we will run events that are specialty specific, but also events that are more generic, like people have asked about overseas. We will run more events to help overseas nurses, but also a lot of nurses in the UK as well would like advice to help build a career. So thank you very much. This this webinar was brought to you by medimatch.io. If you haven't already, feel free to check us out. It's www.medimatch.io, where nurses are empowered to build a career they love. And so thank you very much for joining, and have a lovely evening and a great week ahead. Take care. All the best.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Ciao.